XRP inflows versus price. For those of you guys who are wondering how in the world is it possible that we've seen 15 days of straight inflows into the XRP ETFs totaling over $800 million of inflows, yet we're still watching the XRP price stay stagnant or moving down. How could this be? Well, today's video, we're going to answer that question for you guys and break down the difference between the institutional inflows that we're observing and have consistently been taking place for the past 15 days versus the outflows on the centralized exchanges, which will reflect on that public price that we're watching here in the open markets. So without further ado, let's get into the update. Appreciate you guys for stopping by. All of our community resources are available at zachrector.com. Let's get right on into it. Chad Steingraber, record levels of retail getting ripped out and capitulating. If you view this from the institutional perspective, they really did get the transition they wanted. As little retail as possible in the actual asset, they will sell you the derivative instead. The suits are going to be selling it with slideshow presentations. No, it wasn't safe for you to do self-custody, but it is safe for you to buy their ETF. And so we're seeing massive amounts of capitulation taking place in the markets. And all I have to say to that is I hope that you're like this guy who is complaining yet still buying. I love this one. I said, I love how people complain, but they very rarely ever sell or go short. They just continue to hold and buy more. They're, complaining and crying and whining about XRP price, but they never sell. They never go short. Right? They never actually give up, or at least I hope that you don't. But if you do need to complain about XRP price, do so in the comments down below. Tell us how frustrated you are. And just like we tell our children, it's okay to be frustrated. It's not okay to be mean. So vent out your frustration in the comments down below. And just remember that your attitude is no reflection of the fundamental value of XRP, and the direction that we're moving towards is a much higher price of XRP, despite whether you're having a good or a bad day. And I feel your frustration. We are well short of the XRP targets that I had. We're well below some of the other big targets that we had this year, but it is lining up perfectly. And we are seeing institutional inflows. And eventually you're going to see this converge where retail and the masses out here in the public retail trading secondary markets are going to wake up to what's taking place here behind the scenes. We can't observe the OTC and dark pool flows, but what we can observe is the XRP getting parked behind these ETFs. The XRP that's going to be bought through the new exposure that the CFTC has now opened up, and that's what we're going to break down here next. For the first time ever, spot crypto can trade on CFTC registered exchanges that have been the gold standard for nearly 100 years. This is Nate Grassi saying, in my opinion, this basically paves the way for every major brokerage to offer spot crypto trading and feel comfortable from a regulatory perspective. Now, the CFTC just gave the green light here. And what's interesting is we're watching Bitnomial, right? This is a platform that Ripple actually helped raise money and invested in. Brad Garlinghouse is on the board. And they just announced on December 1st that they were going to be listing XRP here. It's a very interesting timing of this notice that they just put out, saying that XRP can now be used as collateral for the Bitnomial platform, which was one of the first CFTC regulated institutions offering perpetual futures in the United States and the ability to use XRP and RLUSD as collateral. But now they're going to be actually launching an XRP contract to buy spot XRP. So this is very similar to an ETF, but instead of it being an ETF wrapper, it's an actual contract that's backed by XRP. So it's a way for, hedge funds and institutions to buy XRP spot in a CFTC regulated way. And that's what we're looking at right here. Now, Bitnomial cannot list a deliverable spot contract on an asset unless the CFTC agrees it is a commodity. Ooh. What have we been saying here about XRP? We know it's not a security. We've been waiting for the Clarity Act to pass. We have the 2015 ruling where XRP was deemed a virtual currency. And we've been making the case that it's a currency and a commodity similar to gold. But it is suitable for delivery. It has recognized market integrity. It supports clearing in a DCO framework, which is a derivatives clearing house framework. And this means that XRP's regulatory status is effectively done. The market is only waiting for the political theater, Clarity Act, to catch up. The system is already moving. And just like Carolyn Pham, who is the head at the CFTC right now, going into hero mode always makes things happen. And she says, you can just do things, leading from the front. Now I slide on over here. This is the notice from Bitnomial. This was put out on December 1st, sent to the CFTC, and they are launching the XRP US dollar spot contract to be offered for trading on Bitnomial after December 3rd, 2025. Now, this is after the announcement came out at the beginning of November, right at the start of Swell, and I remember listening to Bitnomial up on stage at the Ripple Swell conference when I was there in New York. Had a great time when they made this announcement. So there's a couple pieces to this, and I'm trying to break this down for everybody here so it's simple for you to understand. Bitnomial is a U.S. derivatives exchange company, and they are also a clearinghouse. So they're the only U.S. registered derivatives clearing organization accepting digital assets as native margin collateral, becoming the first to accept stablecoins. What's the first stablecoin? Well, it's going to be RLUSD, and expanding its digital asset margin program to include XRP. So the first stablecoin, RLUSD, and then they added XRP as collateral, meaning that you could go to their platform, put up RLUSD or XRP as collateral, and then go trade against that in perpetual futures. Now, this has been taking place on offshore exchanges. Maybe some of you guys do this type of trading. And I've started to do this on Coinbase. I don't put up XRP as collateral. I don't put up RLUSD as collateral. That's just all US dollar-based CFTC contracts over there on Coinbase. But this is taking it one step further, allowing hedge funds and institutions, which are the main users of Bitnomial, to use RLUSD and XRP as collateral. So that's one part of this Bitnomial situation that's taking place. But then at the start of this month, they just announced that XRP spot contract. So they've expanded, the access here of using RLUSD and XRP as collateral, but then also giving these hedge funds and institutions that use their platform the ability to buy spot XRP in a regulated CFTC compliant way. It's a commodity. So they got the full green light from the CFTC. Everything's a go. And Bitnomial is the only US registered derivatives clearing organization accepting digital assets as native margin collateral. So this is all starting to come together here. Now, I had Grok break down who uses Bitnomial. It's institutional traders and hedge funds, large-scale entities using Bitnomial for hedging, leveraging up to 125x on perps and portfolio management. They benefit from native crypto margin and physical delivery to avoid fiat conversion costs. You also have brokers and trading firms, mining companies, and digital asset hedgers. And then retail traders can also use, there's another, it's not Bitnomial, but they have a second platform that's focused on retail. Okay? Now, as you see down here, Ripple led the $25 million round in 2025, and CEO Brad Garlinghouse is on the board. So it's all coming together here. Big exposure for XRP through the ETFs. That was massive last month. And now you're starting to see a CFTC regulated trading environment. This allows hedge funds and institutional investors to not only trade perpetual futures using XRP as collateral, but also just go buy spot XRP if they want to as well too. So finally, we've been waiting. Where are these banks? Where are these institutions? Where are the hedge funds? Well, now they can finally do it in a compliant way. And they know, they were guessing before. Maybe they found ways, they would get exposure through entities outside of the United States, right? Many of these firms actually set up whole entities outside of the States so that they could go conduct this activity because they didn't want to miss the opportunity, but they were waiting around for regulations here in the United States of America. So all this to say that this is all coming together where there's no more excuses on why somebody can't get exposure to XRP. It's here, fully regulated, whether you want the ETF wrapper, whether you want a CFTC regulated exchange like Bitnomial, or whether you're a retail trader that's, buying XRP on the exchanges, right? Anybody and everyone who wants to get access can. And so what have we seen on the ETFs in particular? Nothing but inflows. The last 4 weeks of ETF inflows are tallying up beautifully here by Chart Nerd. Week 1, 230 million. Week 2, 175 million. And remember, week 1 was only Canary. Right? So this has been a staggered rollout. We haven't even had a full month of trading with all 4 of these ETFs live. 5 if you include the Rex Osprey. But this is a combined 865 million of inflows through the ETFs. And so back to the question, why is XRP price not up? All of these inflows, people have been asking me, Zach, where's the multiplier? We're going to show you. We're going to show you why XRP price has not been going up. And the answer is very simple. All of these inflows are taking place OTC, over the counter. Right? And so these are dark pools and exchanges for institutional investors that are separate from the secondary markets that we trade on as retail traders. And so the price that you're looking at for XRP is the price that retail traders are working with on the public retail order books. Now, the price on the OTC desk is going to be very close. You're not going to get a big discount. You're not going to have too much of a variation there. Arbitrage traders would take advantage of that. And so you're really at the same price. It just allows these institutions to buy these big order blocks without a bunch of slippage and spread and all of those problems, right? And so the reason why XRP price hasn't moved, despite 800 million of inflows into the ETFs, and maybe you caught my update earlier this past week, is because we've actually had 800 million of outflows on the centralized exchanges during the month of November. Here's my tally. The last multiplier update that I did, where I explained we had 808.33 million of outflows in the month of November on the centralized exchanges. Remember, on the OTC desks, where the ETF issuers, basically the ETF issuers have authorized participants, is what they're called, who go buy the XRP and then trade the XRP for shares that the company is looking to create. And so we have basically the same amount of money that came into XRP through the ETFs and the inflows there was heading out on the centralized exchanges. And we saw XRP's market cap went down by 41.14 billion. And so the multiplier in the month of November was a negative 50.89x. And so what I want everybody to remember, though, because you might be saying, well, this sucks. When's XRP ever going to go up? Please remember that this same dynamic played out with Bitcoin, yet Bitcoin still went up 220% after its ETFs went live. I put out this post on November 24th because I've been trying to bring this point home to everybody. Nearly all of the Bitcoin acquired for the ETFs was done through OTC, yet Bitcoin still pumped 220% since they went live. Impressive considering that there was also 24 billion of outflows on centralized exchanges. Anyone saying the same won't happen for XRP is ignoring the precedent set by Bitcoin. See, there was 62 plus billion of inflows into the Bitcoin ETFs, but at the same time, on the retail exchanges, the centralized exchanges, right, there was 24 billion of outflows. Yet Bitcoin still grew by 200%. The market cap growth was 1.76 trillion. Okay, and that market cap multiplier on that was 46x. So what this shows us is that to get the full picture, you got to take the institutional inflows through the ETFs. You got to take the centralized exchange flows, whether that be positive or negative, add both of those up together. You divide that by the change in the market cap, and that's going to give you that multiplier. And that's going to explain why Bitcoin still was able to go up despite outflows on centralized exchanges. And so we're seeing centralized exchanges, big sell-offs on XRP, going right here to this is coinglass.com. Okay, and what we're looking at here, and I showed you guys, I tallied this all up, it's been nothing but outflows in the month of November. Now, yesterday, December 5th, we had 1.58 million of inflows. That's nothing, right? Nothing. And you see 55 million of outflows on December 1st. Right? It's been nothing. The last day of inflows was November 27th, only 26 million of inflows. So that gave us a little bit of a bump. But what we're looking at is back over here in July. This is when we started to see some real action on XRP up to that new all-time high of $3.66. Right on this day, July 16th, 116 million of inflows into XRP. On this day right here, 115 million of inflows into XRP. And for the next few days, you actually had outflows on the 19th, the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd, which is the day that XRP topped out at $3.66. Right around there, those days you actually had outflows. And you might be asking yourself, well, how could the price be going up when there's actually outflows taking place? It's because the buyers that are coming in, and when the short durations, when they do come in, they're coming in so aggressively that they're bidding up that order book so aggressively. So, we saw this after Trump tweeted that XRP was going to be in the strategic reserve over the next hour. Right? I forget what the tally was, but the multiplier on that day was like 500x. And actually, it was only the few hours after Trump put out that tweet. So what happens is, over the course of a day, you might have more money actually flowing out of the asset than coming in. But when it is coming in, it's coming in so aggressively, and it's just bidding up that order book, and that's what's raising that price. And this is why we've seen market cap multipliers on XRP at 100, 200, and 500x, because when the XRP community does come in to buy, and other folks finally capitulate and say, okay, I do need to get exposure to XRP, people pile in aggressively. And so this is why, despite outflows on centralized exchanges for Bitcoin and all of the Bitcoin for the ETFs being acquired OTC, Bitcoin still went up. Because when people did want to come in aggressively, they did. They bid up that order book, and Bitcoin was able to rise in price by 200%, even though all of the 60 plus billion of inflows were OTC. The same thing's going to happen for XRP, at least something similar. And this is why I'm so confident in XRP price appreciation going well into 2026. And I'm looking at double digits in 2026 for XRP in my base case, is because I know how easy it is to hit this lever. And when the buyers come in on XRP, how aggressive they show up and what that's going to do on that order book. Okay. And so this is why XRP hasn't moved yet, despite 15 days of straight inflows, 865 million of inflows through the XRP ETFs, yet we've been stagnant, yet we've been bleeding out. Why? Because retail is capitulating. Retail sold off $800 million worth. And the price that we're observing is from the retail order books. Right. Now, the price on the OTC desks and dark pools is not much different. It's just those inflows don't impact the order books on the public exchanges. So that's the disconnect. Now, eventually, like I said, these are going to converge. And that's when the FOMO kicks in, is when folks realize, oh, crap, I do need to get into XRP. I do need to FOMO into XRP. Right? And this is when folks FOMO in towards the top. And you saw on CoinGlass that I showed you, right when we were running up, we saw 100 million flowing into XRP at the top. And it kept on climbing even on a couple days when there was actually net outflows, because those buyers were so aggressive when they did show up. Same thing's going to happen. It's going to be in 2026. It's going to be double digits, and that's why we're staying locked in. I hope that this update provided you some good context. If you appreciate it, help us out by liking this video, sharing it out far and wide, and all of our community resources are available at zachrector.com. Thank you, and God bless you all. I am your host, Zach Rector. I really appreciate all of the love and support. If you want to support the channel, just remember that you can start by smashing that thumbs up for me, sharing this content far and wide, and everything else is at my website.